Hello, and today on the channel we have this glorious, classic transaxle Porsche. Now, I've just driven this car over 500 miles from Scotland to Portsmouth with two of my children on board, and it's got me thinking, I think I've gone soft as a petrol head. And maybe you have too. Look, let's get into it. My name's Ben, and welcome to Dadcars. So here we have a 90s 2+2 Porsche with arguably the engine in the right place. That could be yours for a fraction of the price of a 911 993, which was in production at the same time as this car. And I think from the front end, they've got more than an uncanny resemblance. But the side profile cuts a very different picture. Now, I've always thought with these being front engine and with the shape of this back section here, that it might be a proper four-seater. So let's get in the back and see what these rear seats are like and see if they're better than a 911. All right, so getting in the back of a transaxle Porsche 968. Oh, let's have a look. Oh. Okay, so yeah, no, it's this is no better than 911. And I think that's less of a knock on this and more of a compliment to the 911. The fact that they managed to fit the engine at the back and have a sleeker drop-off from the side profile, yet still maintain the same level of rear practicality. So let's cut to when I was trying to get child seats in the back of here as well and show you some of the problems I had. So first up, let's try a rear-facing baby seat. Now, obviously, no ISOFIX. Right, so it looks to me like there's not actually enough slack on this rear seat belt to even try and strap this in. So yeah, belt secured, rear facing baby seat is not going to go in the back of this. Now obviously there's no airbags in the front, so in theory you would be able to put the passenger seat all the way back and then strap it in to the front passenger side. It's just whether you feel comfortable doing that or not. But in an emergency you could. Now these trusty belt-secured travel child seats that I use in the back of the Dad B9 fit in there really well because, look, these seat belts are in a really strange position. It's a similar thing with the 911. You could get it in there. Technically, the belt's not actually going through and securing this seat in the way that it's designed to. So it's actually the reason why I put this one in the front passenger seat and then I put my eldest in the back in her booster seat, just because that one did fit in here a little bit better. So yeah, I don't know for certain, but my guess is that, you know, these transaxle Porsches and these rear seats were kind of designed at a time when, you know, people would just sort of put their children in here because they're kind of like booster seats. They're not like full-size seats anyway. Obviously, with the legislation now, you know, you do need to have a child in some form of child seat now up until they're 12. So yeah, frustratingly, these rear seats are a bit of a nightmare to try and get any form of modern child seat in the back. And I suspect that's probably the case with a lot of 2+2 classic cars. And while the rear seats are slightly disappointing for a dad car, the boot is not. Look what I've got in here. So I've got my 4-year-old's bike, a folding lightweight buggy, my camera bag, and even some stuff of James's in there as well. Now obviously I could climb in there and fit in there easily, but I'm not going to do that today because, like with a lot of older classic cars, this isn't particularly structural, so I'd have to take all of that out to climb in, and I just don't fancy doing it. And the boot practicality continues when you fold down these top sections of the seat, giving you a huge loading bay here, so you'd never have to pay for IKEA delivery ever again if you buy yourself a 968. Right, let's go for a drive, shall we? And first things first, sitting in here, you are transported back to the 90s in a really good way. I love the feel of this interior, the dash, everything. You know, that black strip that runs around there. They've done an incredible job, considering this is all mainly plastic. There's an incredible job of making this feel really special, and it still feels special today. As I said earlier, we just got back yesterday from a 550-mile trip from Scotland to Portsmouth and had my two oldest children in the car with me. So I've got a much better idea of what it would be like running an early 90s Porsche as a dad car today. First thing, I'm a little bit ashamed to admit, when I first picked this car up and started driving it, I immediately thought that it didn't have power steering. The first stop we did, I actually Googled it to check, does the 968 have power steering? Because it feels at low speed when you're parking and when you're first pulling away, almost feels like my old Elise did.
But no, it does have power steering. But once you get going, you've got a real nice sort of weight and feel to this steering. But that brings me on to the first point, why I think we're sort of going soft nowadays. You know, driving around in my wife's third generation X5, you can park that near 2.5 ton thing with one finger. Obviously just clicking it into reverse and drive, it's just so easy. Whereas in this, you know, you could build up a bit of a sweat trying to park it into a bay. But the workouts don't stop there, because this clutch pedal is really long and rather heavy. It's crazy. I mean, I used to have multiple 90s manual cars, and I sort of thought I remembered what it feels like, but it's even more sort of physical than I remembered. But once you do get used to the clutch, this gearbox is a real treat. I love it. I find myself just leaving my hand here just so that I can feel connected and in tune with the car. It is so delightful, it really is. Now, because this clutch pedal is fairly long, I have to have my seat quite far forward because I've got really short legs. But what that means though is, look, watch this. My head is touching on this. It's crazy. I feel really far forward, but it's the only way that my little legs can reach to push the clutch all the way down comfortably. So yeah, that's quite strange. And I mean, this car does have a removable sunroof section, but even if I did remove it, it's kind of behind me. So I wouldn't, with my seat position, I wouldn't get the benefit of it. It would just be for the people behind. But regardless of the seating position, the visibility in this thing is incredible. I can see absolutely everything. It's lovely, and the view over this bonnet, with those shapes on the side, car is really lovely. And obviously this has got pop-up lights as well, so hang on, let's pop them up. And when they pop up, it does look really cool, and sort of highlights as well just like how narrow this car is compared to modern cars. So, you know, driving around on country lanes and things like that, it's really quite enjoyable, because even if you've got a huge great SUV coming towards you with its tyres over the line, you're going to slip right past in this. But on those pop-up headlights though, I can't help but think that they're kind of pointless. Look, I love pop-up headlights. You know, my MR2 is one of my favourite cars I've ever owned. But the 993 doesn't need to have pop-up headlights, and they look pretty much the same as this. In fact, I think some people do a 993 light conversion on this so that they don't pop up. But yeah, it kind of makes me think that, you know, if you're going to have pop-up lights, you know, have them like the 944, where you can see the bonnet shapes and you can see these wing mirrors, and you're getting that beautiful flash of cobalt blue and the spoiler behind me there as well. This is a really, really stunning colour. You know, it looks really sort of like subtle and understated when it's in the shade or at night. But when it's a sunny day like today, it really pops. Right, sweetie, should we see how fast this car goes, sweetie? What do you think of that? God. Yeah, I'll tell you, for a 4-cylinder, 3-litre, naturally aspirated, 240 brake horsepower, feels absolutely perfectly suited to this car. Plenty fast enough, and just so much feel from that engine. You know, you can feel it through the gearbox, through the steering wheel, through the seat as well. Which kind of brings me on to the next point. So when you're cruising on a road which has got pretty good tarmac, this is a really capable Grand Tourer. However, when you hit a rough section of road, God, do you feel it. I don't know when this video is going to go out, but I filmed this very soon after I drove JM's Ferrari F12. Now, that Ferrari F12, I was expecting to feel like sitting on a washing machine going full clip. But I was pleasantly surprised that the dampened settings, what they've done in that Ferrari, is just witchcraft. However, if you're on a rough road in a 968, potholes everywhere, feels like you're sat on a washing machine that someone's thrown a brick into. Honestly, I cannot even begin to imagine what a 968 Club Sport feels like on its lower springs and stiffer dampers. Christ, I wouldn't want to have my 968 with children on board feeling any firmer than this, because yeah, in the UK we do get some rough roads, don't we? Now, driving back the 550 miles from Scotland, it was raining for about 75% of the time. Really horrible conditions. But I'm pleased to say not a single drop of water got into this car. But if this was a 90s JDM car with a removable roof panel, car, honestly, you would be absolutely sopping wet and you'd have tons of condensation to fight with the whole journey as well. But yeah, I'm pleased to say, didn't have any of those problems at all here. I need to say a massive thank you to James. Yes, JM, for letting us drive another one of his incredible cars. But not only that, I mean, we went up to Scotland to pick it up because James offered to pay for our flights to go up there and do it. So thank you so much, James, for letting me feature this car and also giving me and my children the opportunity to go and make a real special memory. First time that I've ever been to Scotland, and let alone my children. So yeah, it was absolutely wonderful. And as always, if you want to see what a proper professional road test looks like, check out JM on Cars in the unlikely event you haven't already done so. See, the thing is though, with the more primitive power steering and the long heavy clutch and the less refined sort of damping and spring setups on here, what you do get though is such an engaging drive, and really does make me realise just how soft we've got. And even driving around in my 14-year-old Aston Martin, which I thought I was keeping it pretty cool and real, you know, thinking that's a bit of an old school car to drive as your daily, but yeah, there's levels to this thing. I mean, you can go even older than these cars as well, can't you? Driving this back 550 miles in torrential rain with 2 children on board, it never felt dangerous, you know, it felt quite composed when it's, you know, at speed on the motorway, but I did find myself sort of at times wishing, you know what, this would be a hell of a lot more actually enjoyable if I was just in something a bit more modern, you know, maybe even with 4-wheel drive. But I think that's because I had my children on board. I wonder if the conditions were like they are right now, glorious sunshine, because this is incredible. I'm having such a lovely time driving this around right now. But I am in two minds whether the Aston Martin replacement should be something of a similar vintage, just because of the general more usability of it, because obviously, you know, my whole thing is daily dad cars. So, you know, that journey back in this car sort of highlighted to me that, you know what, actually I do appreciate the comforts that you get from, you know, a car from the noughties. But then I feel a bit disappointed in myself as well though, that I've gone soft, and you know, a car like this does just feel like such a huge contrast. So yeah, if the Aston Martin replacement is something from this vintage, you know, that will be a bit of a brave pill, but maybe it's a brave pill that I'd like to go for, because I don't like the idea that I'm going too soft. I'm getting too used to being able to park a car with one finger. I mean, what's the next step? Am I going to have a car which has got self-parking? And then the next step, driving a car which is fully autonomous, you know, like, it just makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. So yeah, I'm in two minds whether to go for something which is older than the Aston, just so that I can keep things real. But it's undeniable though, that living with a car like this as your daily, it's going to be a lot more hard work, particularly with doing dad duties. And there has been occasions when my wife has taken my Aston Martin for the day, you know, when a car's been in for MOT or something like that, and used it with the children. And it's a very, very easy car to drive, certainly in comparison to a car like this. I don't think my wife would be very keen at all to drive this car. So in summary then, for the Porsche 968, I do believe that this is your ticket to classic Porsche ownership that you could use as a dad car for not too much money. I mean, you know, prices for a decent one are around £20,000. However, be aware that getting child seats in is not particularly easy. I actually think that this is better suited as a second dad car, and then having your primary daily dad car as something with a bit more refinement. And that is a very shocking conclusion I didn't think I would come to. But look, if you're somebody who's willing to risk waking up your children because of the harsh ride, and then when you get to the supermarket, even parking in parent and child parking, you're going to build up a bit of a sweat trying to get it in the bay. If you're willing to live with that as a daily, what you're left with is a car that on a day like today, when the sun is shining, the roads are dry, and you're on a beautiful section of driving road, it will give you a true driving experience that I think would be more enjoyable than if you were driving around in a brand new 992 911. I honestly do believe that. And if you haven't driven a car which is like over 30 years old for 2 or 3 years, and you call yourself a petrol head, I really highly recommend that you do. And sort of check yourself. Check how soft you've got. But look, thank you all so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Remember to hit the like button, only takes 5 seconds. Comment below, what do you think? You know, what is anybody out there got one of these as a daily? And look, I'll see you all on the next one. Bye-bye.
If you haven't done so already, check out our video showing the 1,000 mile trip to Scotland to collect this car.